Dr. Vladimir wrote a goodbye letter to you in which he talks about the possibility of an atomic bomb to be used for bad causes. This is the first time in history that a scientist mentions the possibility of anything like that. Could you read the letter to us?
No, it is of personal nature, but I can tell you that he was indeed the first to recognize the power of radioactivity, not only as a great positive source of energy, but also as a potential threat to humanity at large. Vernadsky, my grandfather, was also the first Soviet scientist to recognize the value of studying radioactivity and its peaceful applications. Yet look at what has happened. Less than a 2-hour drive from where a statue stands in Kiev lies the border to the Chernobyl exclusion zone, a 2,500 square kilometer area now rendered largely uninhabitable through the contamination of the landscape resulting from the leakage of radioactive material from the Unit 4 reactor in 1986.
Famously, Ivan Karamazov voiced a radical rejection of a future harmony whose soil has been manured with the suffering of innocent people. For him, this harmony is not worth the tears even of one abused child. Not to mention the hell that reigns on earth and which is supposed to become even worse in the other world, so as to compensate for the sins of this one. For him, for Ivan Karamazov, this price is way too high, and he hurries to return his entrance ticket into such a harmony.
Russian Cosmism, a trend in Russian philosophical thought from the second half of the 19th century through to the first half of the 20th century, is one of the original variations of international cosmism. Russian Cosmism regards the interrelations between humankind and the cosmos, microcosm and the macrocosm in a projective, active, creative sense. According to this school of thought, humankind is not just a spectator of the world and the Earth's vast expanse, but also an active participant in the process of the world's creation. A human is a creature on whom the fates of history and the final destinies of the universe alike depend on. Its founder is Nikolai Fedorov, the author of the Philosophy of the Common Task. He radically advocated life extension by means of scientific methods, human immortality, and resurrection of dead people, with the determination that we need to care not only about sick people, but for all of humanity, and in order to protect all worldly knowledge from the pyramid construction to travel to the universe. All of them carried the same idea and beliefs: immortal humans, immortal universe, that the universe will overcome nature, nature as a shapeless monstrosity, a trait of its fallen state, which manifests itself in death, decomposition, displacement. Other notable figures that share the same ideas include Sergei Podolinsky, a physician, a socialist, and an early pioneer of ecological economics; Nikolai Umov, a physicist and mathematician; Vladimir Vernadsky, considered to be one of the founders of geochemistry, biogeochemistry, and radiogeology. Philosophical figures including Vladimir Solyov, who was a friend of Fyodor Dostoevsky. He favored unification between the Orthodox and Roman Catholic churches. Sergei Bulgakov, a philosopher, economist, and priest, and Pavel Florensky, a theologian, priest, philosopher, as well as a physicist, electrical engineer, and inventor. Konstantin Tsiolkovsky's Cosmos philosophy and the Tsemir which means all world or the whole world in English, describes the idea of an all-encompassing world which can be loosely echoed in the idea of intermediality, where a given medium remediates other media in order to strengthen the message. In 1965, Dick Higgins reintroduced intermediate to art theory in the context of the Fluxus movement, where artists, composers, designers, and poets took part producing performative art, actions, poetry, experimental music, and film. Individuals who all shared radical ideas about art and the role of art in society. This reflects the same way that Cosmists saw the need to change the role of humanity in the world.
The main thesis of Russian Cosmism is the laws of artistic creativity, which produce the world of perfect, beautiful forms, should become the laws of reality itself. They must actively create life. Aesthetics is a science about the restoration of all sentient beings who used to populate the tiny earth, so that they can spiritualize and govern all celestial worlds, which are now devoid of rational beings. The most important stage on art's path towards achieving a new mature state is its close collaboration with scientific thought. Science, unlike art, with its whimsical fantasy, does not produce ideal images. Instead, science studies the properties of the real world, examines reality profoundly, while organizing and systematizing humanity's labor according to the laws that it has been uncovered. However, to fully unite with art, science itself must be radically broadened and morally transformed. It must advance beyond isolated tests and experiments conducted in the confines of a laboratory, and instead begin an exploration of a new and truly universal scale. It must work in at the service of mutual destruction, not in the name of the ideals of society, not in the profit of select few, but for the salvation and regulation of life. It will befall science to chart the paths towards realizing the project of the perfect world that is revealed in the highest instances of art. Such a synthesis felt especially relevant to the people of the epoch, who experienced world and civil wars, post-revolutionary devastation, and hunger. All these thinkers posed the question of whether art and science had the right to focus exclusively on theoretical, planetary, and cosmic problems tasks.
Past and future are always already blended in the present, and our desire to isolate the history in moments that are left behind is anti-historical. How can one be faithful to history? For Fedorov, this necessarily presupposes a truth procedure and starts with the correct comprehension of what history is. Thus, national history, for example, is nothing but a symptom of division and a manifestation of national vanity. History is and can be conceived only as universal and cannot become real so long as are wars and power struggles. History is often seen as a reservoir of cases and proofs to be used in a manipulative manner in political pamphlets. What is particularly interesting in today's context is that Fedorov contrasted history as science, that he despised, to history as art, since art is a form of action, a creative element of our vita activa. For Fedorov, everyone participates in making history. The past is already always integrated into the project of the future, as well as in the actual future itself. But this doesn't help. Wars are happening, hard labor exists, people die and suffer, natural disasters are not yet conquered, and nobody is going to save the dead. What Fedorov offers is different. He sets the clock backwards and suggests making the past the one and only project, that is to be carried out in the future, replacing it. It is impossible to be faithful to history if this history runs off like water or decomposes like ashes in the soil. But if humans fully turn back from the forthcoming towards the past, if only we make an attempt to discover future in the past, we could probably reverse the modernist logic of history. So it is not the past that has to be sacrificed for the future as its integral part, but rather the idea of progress that is to be abandoned and the image of the future dissolved in the active work of memory. It doesn't mean that the technological development would have to stop. Rather, it means that there is no accelerated production, only distribution, control, and care. History, then, is neither a number of facts nor a narrative, but a project and an ongoing action.
Nature is chaotic and is therefore far from securing freedom for humanity. Nature does not secure safety for humans. For those non-regulation states of nature, industrialization, war, and other distractions, regulation is needed. Today's organization of environment is under the dictatorship of God in the form of religion, heroes, nature, and the invisible hand of the market. This is all unacceptable, and therefore humanity needs to establish regulation, which could be referred to as a project of care. For the first time in history, Russian cosmist Dr. Vladimir Vernadsky described the potential threat to humanity due to atomic plutonium powers. The work by cosmists was withheld by Stalin and was never subject to international popularization, making the stream of thought virtually invisible. It is possible to understand that the idea of Russian cosmism is one of the first school of thoughts that aligns with intermediality by its interconnections of ways of working and thinking. We could ask, if this movement was more promoted, would the disasters, wars, and devastations have happened?